Coach, talking about the looking at the forwards now. Obviously, it's kind of hard to talk about that group without starting with what's now no longer here and 2 All-Americans and basically let's call them 4-year starters and Emmanuel Terry and Dorian Pinson. So it seems like we talk about this every year, trying to replace guys like that. Obviously, you can't do it, but talk about going forward without Emmanuel and Dorian this year.
Yeah. Did they leave a void? Is that what we're saying? No, I mean, 2 of the obviously great players in school history and league history. You look at the 2 winningest players in the history of the conference. I think it's very apropos for them because they terrific talent. Obviously, with both guys, they're very different in terms of how they play, but tremendous talents. Thought they were unbelievable human beings that impacted the community in a great way. And then the leadership that they provided, in particular Dorian, is probably the best leader we've had here. But Emmanuel did it more through his example and just, his infectious energy. And Dorian just through the day-to-day, grind and holding guys accountable and encouraging guys. But great players, great people, great leaders, and that's how you go 126-14 in their 4 years. And I don't think it's any coincidence that, when they got here 4 years ago, there was a question of, can they get over the hump? We'd been we'd been number 1 in the country. We'd been in the NCAA tournament a bunch of times. We hadn't got past the second round, and that was kind of a hurdle. And I don't think it's coincidental that the last 3 years, you go to national championship game, 2 Final Fours, and 3 regional finals with those guys leading the way. So they're missed not just for how good they were, but for who they are. And certainly the corporate knowledge and leadership that they provided. It's something that you can't replace. All the things that they brought to the table. There's the tangible, intangible. You're never going to find guys to replace that. But I think that's been the case as we've discussed with whether it's a Jarrell Simmons of Vinny Bailey. You go back to history, Luquan Choice. These guys that come in, they're irreplaceable. You just got to be different. But yeah, certainly I long to. It'd be nice to be like. Have that Belichick, Brady, Popovich, Duncan deal with those guys to coach them for 15, 17 years. Make me look a lot smarter and better coach than I am if I was able to do that.
So when you look at the group, how it shapes up this year, it's a lot of new and a lot of guys that have been here for a few years and have not had a ton of experience. Mm-hmm. And Rondi Hackett and Stephen Perrier and Tion Williams, who obviously still hasn't gotten to play a game while he's been here. But so just talk about in general how that forward group is shaping up.
Well, when you look at the centers, I think it's going to be a committee. We've got really 4 guys there that are all, have different strengths, but they're really different players. And I think you'll see all 4 of them. I think you got those 3 guys. You look at Tion Williams, Stephen Perrier, Rondi Hackett, and Diamante Brown. I think you'll see all those guys. Unfortunately, Diamante's hurt right now, but he'll be back and hopefully for the regular season. But those 4 guys, I think it'll be really matchup based. They'll all get opportunities. None of them have separated themselves with, we've got to play this guy, 30 minutes. And on the flip side, nobody's, been so bad that, hey, this guy can't help us win. I think they'll, as a group, collectively, hopefully do enough to be serviceable. We've been really fortunate, I think, 3 of the last 5 years. We've had a center, who's been an All-American. We look at Vinny Bailey, Chris Perry, Emmanuel Terry. That's a luxury most people don't have. So we don't have an All-American big, but we hope that, as a group, that we can find, they're able to kind of to play their roles, do what they do well. We do need guys, I think, with your bigs. One of the things that's underrated, and I thought Emmanuel was great at this, and maybe his greatest strength was you need somebody to anchor your defense and protect the rim. And those guys have to do that for us to have any chance to be successful. And then offensively, just do what they do well. They all bring differing skill sets to the table, but they have to anchor our defense. They have to protect the rim. They have to get on the glass and rebound the ball. And if they do that, and I think they will, and like I said, the rest will just be based on matchups. I think they're all good guys who understand the situation. And some nights it'll be their night, some nights it won't. But all 4 are good kids who I think are going to help us throughout the year.
You kind of taken my next point and gone ahead and moved on to my next point is that obviously defensive rebounding is a core of any basketball team, but it really has been the core tenet of our program. We've regularly been atop the national standings in terms of field goal percentage defense, and always been kind of anchored by guys that have been traditional forwards and have been in the system. And now a lot of those guys you just named are guys that either haven't played here at all or have been in the system and haven't played. So kind of how have you tried to work as your team to as the coaching staff to develop all of that and the things that are needed systematically in your defense?
Well, it's just repetition and trying to emphasize it. I mean, certainly rebounding is vital to any team. I mean, we have absolutes. Rebounding would be right up there in terms of what it takes to be successful. And I think it's an area where you get a little spoiled. We've had some great rebounders, and I don't know that we were a great box out team last year. If you looked at us from a qualitative standpoint and said, they check out, like Emmanuel Terry's not boxing anybody out, but he's 6'9" and flying around and playing as hard as he can, and Dorian Pinson's unbelievable on the glass. And so we didn't have to be a great box-out team. Those guys just went and got them. We don't have that. And so it puts the onus on us to really be sound, to make sure we're checking out, to make sure we're a 5-man rebounding team. Our guards got to get in there, and in some cases, I think our guards are our best rebounders. We got some guards that can go get it off the glass. So we've got to be a 5-man rebounding team. And you're right, you can't be a good defensive team if you're not a good defensive rebounding team. Offensive rebounds lead to a lot of bad stuff if you're on defense, whether it's layups, fouls, or certainly open threes. I can't guard those off offensive rebounds. So we're trying to emphasize it. We're certainly trying to be more diligent and vigilant about making sure that our guys are checking out. We're trying to emphasize it every way we can, and that's ultimately if we're going to be any good, we're going to have to be a really sound box out team, a team that goes and rebounds collectively. And like a lot of things with this year's group, our margin for error is not as big. And so we've got to be committed to those controllable things. And it starts with those, I think that's going to be a big key for us is how well we rebound the ball, particularly defensively, and how those three and those four really will be an impact there and play a significant role in our defensive rebounding.
Well, it does also sound like you have a lot of versatility. You're talking about matchups. It all might depend on who you play based on matchups. So do you feel like you have a lot of versatility in that group? I
do. I feel like there's not one guy that can play in every game and be effective in every game. But we got guys that they're very different. Even though there's 4 of them, you look at a guy like Tion Williams. He's 6'9". He's highly skilled. He'd bring some things to the table from an offensive skill set standpoint that are pretty unique. He's also got great length at the rim, and as he figures out help and being on time and utilizing his body correctly, he's got great timing to block shots and be a guy that can affect it that way and also steps out and can shoot the ball on the perimeter. Rondi Hackett's a guy that is really probably right now out of the bigs our best in terms of challenging plays at the rim. He does a good job of protecting the rim. He's fairly solid in our coverages in terms of he's been here this is his 4th year. He's a redshirt junior, so he understands kind of what we're doing on that end of the floor and does a nice job in terms of ball screen coverage. And he's another guy offensively that can step out, shoot the ball a little bit. He's also probably, I don't know if he's the most, but he's one of our better back to the basket threats. He and Tion were the 2 best we have in terms of playing with their back to the basket and being able to score points down there and put some pressure on the rim through post-ups. Stephen Perrier's been here, his 3rd year. Steve's, I think, the best perimeter shooter of the bigs, and he's probably the best rebounder. He's a guy, particularly on the O glass, and so he's a guy that can impact the games through that. He's got good skill, and he's a guy where he's shown he hasn't got much opportunity, just like Rondi. They've been behind other guys, but I think he had some double-digit scoring games last year, and he had, I think, a few conference games where he grabbed 8 rebounds in limited minutes. He just didn't get opportunity, but he's a guy that can get on the glass. And then Demonte Brown's true freshman that we think has a chance to be special. He's the most probably, even though he's a true freshman, he's physically the strongest, quickest, best athlete of the group. He's a guy that can really, play with his, facing up to the basket and does a great job attacking off ball screens and getting downhill, and he rolls fast, and he's a vertical athlete. So he's a guy that can put vertical pressure on the rim when you talk about, getting in and rolling hard and being able to throw lobs too. He's certainly that, and then he's got really good feet, so he gives us a little bit like with Emmanuel, some of that switchability defensively, where if necessary, he can go and guard guards for sure. So again, it'll be matchup based. In this league, you have teams that play in different ways. I mean, the way Newberry plays, certain bigs aren't going to be really effective in that game. And that was the case even 2 years ago. I mean, Chris Perry was not a guy who played a lot of minutes or was very effective in the Newberry game. It was too fast-paced. The guys were too small. And so that's the case for most guys. Emmanuel, obviously, it translated most every game, for his standpoint. But in this year's group, there'll be games where certain guys more effective than another guy, or maybe when a certain guy's in, that guy's more effective even from a personnel standpoint, not just a team-wide matchup, but individual personnel. This guy's a true center, so we're going to use this guy. This guy's more of a quicker guy, we're going to use this guy. And so we just got to, they're all going to play. They're all going to have to play well and do what they do well for us to be good. But that's an area where, like you said, a lot of unknown commodities.